Hey everyone. Greetings. It's Naomi Wolf, and I'm here with Outspoken. And I'm very honored to have two very special guests today, Dr. Francisco Contreras of Oasis of Hope Hospital in Mexico, or clinic, I should say, and a patient, Rick Hill, who identifies as a 50-year terminal cancer survivor. So obviously not terminal because we're talking to you today. So greetings to you both, gentlemen, and then I'll read your bios.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Good morning. So Francisco Contreras, Dr. Contreras is an oncologist with more than 40 years of clinical experience, and he's the director of the Oasis of Hope Hospital, a pioneer in integrative cancer therapy, author of The Hope of Living Cancer-Free, The Coming Cancer Cure, and 8 additional books on nutrition, metabolism, and patient-centered oncology. For decades, Dr. Contreras has treated patients from more than 55 countries and is recognized internationally for advancing metabolic and nutritional approaches to cancer care. And you can see his hospital at oasisofhope.com. Rick Hill, who's also with us today, is a 51-year cancer survivor who overcame stage 3 embryonal cell carcinoma without chemotherapy or radiation. He was diagnosed in 1974 at the Mayo Clinic and given little chance of survival. But Rick chose an alternative path at Oasis of Hope Hospital in Tijuana, where he followed a program centered on Laetrile and detoxification. Oh my goodness. So much to ask about, but let's just get started. If I may, I'd like to start with Dr. Contreras. Dr. Contreras, I understand that your father actually founded this hospital.
Right.
Please tell me the story of Oasis of Hope in your own words.
Well, my father was a renowned oncologist and the director of one of the major military oncologist centers in Mexico City. Mm-hmm. And he came to the conclusion in the late 50s that, oncology was being a failure. And the main reason was because doctors had become just mechanics of the human body, and that they were not taking care of the emotional and spiritual needs of patients.
Oh, wow.
And he was virtually ousted because he wanted to implement those things. And so he started the practice on his own. And then in 1963, a patient that was doing a clinical trial with Laetrile in Canada came back to San Diego, and nobody wanted to continue with the program there because it was not FDA approved. And an oncologist there that knew my father, because my father was a pathologist in Tijuana and in San Diego.
I see.
He was also an oncologist. An oncologist in San Diego said, well, why don't you go to Tijuana? There's a Mexican oncologist, and he might, want to continue with this. And so since Mexico, it's easier to ask for pardons or forgiveness instead of permission. Right. My dad said, well, this patient she was very advanced with stage 4 cancer of the breast, and there was really nothing to offer. And my father said, well, there's nothing to lose, so I'm going to give her this Laetrile. And lo and behold, she started getting better and better. And she started calling everybody on the trial that this Mexican doctor was willing to do this. And that's how the Oasis of Hope was actually started. My father was not into alternatives, but this was brought to him. And he felt that it was God's mission for him to do this. And then about 10 years later, Rick shows up with my father in very, very poor conditions, almost on a stretcher. And he's, I believe that he's a miracle of God, because we're good, but not that good. But then he was able to maintain the gains and maintain that miracle with tremendous discipline and commitment to his health and treatment.
Wow. So before I turn to Mr. Hill to find out more about that, just a couple of more questions about what you just shared, Dr. Contreras. So I should tell you, you and Mr. Hill are the second independent physicians, clinicians who are talking to me about the miracle results or the extraordinary results with cancer treatment of Laetrile. And just to remind my viewers, Laetrile is derived from apricot seeds. Is that not correct?
Correct.
So this is two independent, groups not connected with each other, confirming the same thing, which in journalism means there's a fact there. At least it's confirmed that, this has happened more than once, that separate people have seen these results. What is it about Laetrile that you think is, creating these positive outcomes for cancer patients?
Well, Laetrile, as you've heard, has been around for a long, long time. And it was actually studied at the Sloan Kettering Institute. And they found the mode of action, which is killing malignant cells through cyanide toxicity. And this, brought up the antennas of everybody. Oh my God, is cyanide. But what happens is that this release of cyanide in the cells is actually necessary for our survival. So cyanide is the raw material for cyanocobalamin, which is vitamin B12. And so the cells, normal cells, have the capacity of converting this very, very tiny amounts of cyanide into cyanocobalamin. But malignant cells don't have the capacity to convert it, so they intoxicate with cyanide.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a mild chemotherapeutic agent, natural, completely natural, that specifically kills malignant cells because benign cells have the capacity of metabolizing the cyanide. And this is the mode of action. And as I tell you, all of this was studied at the Sloan Kettering, but being that it's a natural product, there was no interest. And you cannot say that it's a conspiracy against natural therapies. What happens is that in order for you to prove that something is safe and effective to the FDA, nowadays you have to spend about $1 billion in research.
Wow.
And then the companies that do the research and obtain approval, they get a patent, and they have about 20 years to make that investment back.
Oh my gosh.
But when it's a natural product, you still have to spend $1 billion, but there's no patent because it's natural.
Right.
And so nobody's going to spend $1 billion and then never be able to get that money back. Wow. And that is unfortunately what's happening with natural therapies all around the world. They all the way up to animals, they've been proven to be very effective, but then nobody has the interest of promoting them into actual clinical trials because they'll never make their money back. But that doesn't mean that they're not good.
Right. No,
they didn't go through the FDA.
Right. I understand. Well, one last question, and thanks for your patience, Mr. Hill. Given what you've just described, and again, you're confirming, accounts of other healers about the reason there's an active disincentive to make medicines out of natural products that can't be patented. Has something changed in the last, say, 15 years? Because I often look up natural remedies on PubMed, the database of peer-reviewed scientific papers in the US. And actually, they're global papers. But I noticed that there have been a lot of tests and studies of natural remedies up until about 10 or 15 years ago. And then they seem to have stopped or slowed down dramatically. Or, this is going to sound very tendentious, or they get like negative results, but that the robust studies, like hundreds, hundreds in the control group and hundreds in the test group, for things like, well, I was just looking at, hibiscus and vitamin C and, any number of folk remedies, basically. There's just an abundance of documentation of how effective they are until about 10 or 15 years ago. Can you tell me why that might be? Has it gotten more expensive to bring something to the FDA? Is there just less research money going into herbal and natural remedies? What could be the reason for that?
No, you will find, hundreds, for instance, in curcumin. There are hundreds of publications of how good it could be for cancer. But again, the big money is spent in clinical trials to prove safety. Those are long-term studies. And as I told you, it's hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
And you will never get a patent to vitamin C.
Right.
Or curcumin.
Right.
And so I think that it's just that 15 years ago, they started, let's not waste our money, because no matter how many studies we do in animal and in the lab, we're just never going to get to clinical trials, because we're never going to make our money back.
There is a worldwide rush for gold right now and precious metals. China is buying gold. There are rumors that the Federal Reserve will be using gold to pay off federal debt, or the federal government will be using gold to pay off federal debt. Famous investors are buying gold. And there's a movement away from the dollar worldwide. And you can see that there are warning signs in the economy that appeared before the Great Depression in 2008 that are flashing red right now. So in all this instability, it is a very good idea to protect your savings, to protect your IRA by diversifying into precious metals, especially gold. There are a lot of gold companies out there. Not all of them are kosher. Not all of them are responsible businesses. American Alternative Assets really is. And we're very, very proud to have them as a sponsor. We're very picky about our sponsors, and we only accept sponsors who have products that we either use or invest in ourselves. So I really encourage you to go to cloutgold.com, CLOUTGOLD.com, and get a free report explaining to you what the risks are of not diversifying into gold and silver. And I just want to note that when Brian and I started talking about investing in gold 5 years ago, when it first became clear that you could do that easily, if we'd put in $1,000 then, it would be $5,000 now. If we'd put in $10,000 then, it would be $50,000 now, and so on. So obviously you can't predict everything about the future, but gold there's a limited amount of it on the planet. And in a time when you can have your assets switched off, if they're digital, like the truckers in Canada had their bank account switched off. People in Spain are having their bank account switched off. All of China is now on a social credit system. Your assets can be switched off. And Europe is pushing for central bank digital currency. Now is the time to diversify into gold.
That's and so again, it's not a conspiracy. It's just the system.
It's a system.
Once somebody comes up with an idea on how to incentivize the industry to produce natural products, that is going to explode, because there are many things that have proven that have tremendous scientific background to continue to do clinical trials, but there's a disincentive to do them, because you will never make your money back.
You're giving me an idea, Dr. Contreras. It seems like it would be a good idea for people who want independent medical information to start a subscription service where they can pay $100 a year or whatever it is, in the many thousands, to fund long-term clinical trials of natural treatments that otherwise will never make their money back. But that's not your problem to solve. It just occurred.
That's an interesting idea. I don't know if you remember that Ted Turner wanted to donate $800 million to the UN. I wrote him a letter, said, why don't you give the $800 million to study lateral and do all of the clinical trials, since you're not interested in that money? And never wrote back to me.
What a shame. All right. Well, you've definitely explained what the bottleneck is, financially, for sure. So let me ask one more question. I promise I'll go to Mr. Hill. You took on your dad's legacy, and presumably you observed what he was doing as you were a young man or growing up, and then you chose to go into oncology, the family business, and then you basically inherited this hospital. Is that the idea? And bring me up to date.
You have the perfect picture about it. So I went to do my oncological residency in Vienna because my father wanted me to be a completely formal oncologist and to continue his work. And yes, then I came back, worked with my father for about 12 years before he passed away. And it was just a marvelous experience working with my dad because he had a completely different outlook on life and how to treat patients and to love patients, actually get involved with the patients instead of, no, since you're going to die, I'm not going to, I'm not going to be cold and I'm just going to tell you the facts. And so he had this complete commitment to providing patients not only physical resources for them to combat their cancers, but emotional and spiritual resources as well.
Wow.
And these has been, finally a little bit uptaken by the industry, where now they have psychologists and prayer rooms and all of this and singing and even laughter therapy. That's one of the things that my father started 60 years ago, laughter therapy and working for the immune system. But yes, basically,
love boosts the immune system. Sorry, love boosts healing. Spiritual practice boosts healing.
And there are many publications about it. I mean, it's well established, and it's unfortunate that most oncologists do not take advantage of all of that knowledge that's out there. That it's tremendously helpful to patients.
I really want to return to that. You've said something profound. I just want to go to Mr. Hill. So this is a shocking and amazing story, also very uplifting. You must have been pretty young when you got your serious cancer diagnosis. Is that the case?
It was 1974, and I was 24 years old. The principal of a Christian day school, newly married a year. My wife was now pregnant with our first child, and the wheels came off the wagon. I thought, I work for God. I mean, why am I being picked on here with this kind of so I went to the Mayo Clinic, had good insurance, and they did 9 hours of exploratory surgery on me, didn't have scans, and then they said I had to have chemotherapy. Now I was down to 120 pounds and I was on morphine.
Oh gosh.
So this is not a hangnail. A lot of people that have heard me speak or have read my book have said, well, I don't think you had cancer in the first place. Really? Well, I did. I wrote the Mayo Clinic and accused them of misdiagnosing me when the American Cancer Society denied that I had ever had cancer. They were all ganging up on me.
Wait, I don't understand. Did you have cancer or not?
I did. I got a letter here from the Mayo Clinic that says, I just have one little teeny paragraph here, but it says, in regard to your question that people have asked, questioning as to whether or not you actually did have cancer in the first place, you are entirely right that you had stage 3 high-grade embryonal cell carcinoma. And there's a picture of the letter from the Mayo Clinic that came overnight delivered.
Wow. Well, that's good for them for standing up for the record. So what were your symptoms? I mean, how did you know you were sick before you got diagnosed?
I had a tumor in the groin that hurt. I didn't do any horseback riding back then. And I went to multiple doctors and they said, well, these usually often are cancer. Let's send you over to the Mayo Brothers. They called it in Minnesota. And I went to the Mayo Brothers and they scheduled me for that lengthy surgery just 2 days after I arrived.
Oh, wow.
And that surgery nearly killed me. I'm still getting over some of it. But isn't it interesting that a family like the Contreras family, that have you ever been in a room where you realized you were no longer the smartest guy in the room?
Often.
That's what I think when I get around that family. He just brushed over it, but he said, I went to Austria to study oncology. He didn't speak German.
Hmm.
He had to learn the language, and imagine the complexity of that language when Spanish is his language.
Yeah.
He's fluent in English, fluent in German, and a surgeon. So I just, I get around him. I think I'm just going to agree with everything he says.
Well,
guy, off the chart.
I will take that as given for sure. But I want to go back to you and your story, Mr. Hill, as well. So this must have been so terrifying to be a young husband, a young father, a teacher, you said, at a Christian school? Or
principal, as a matter of fact.
At a Christian school, and face such a serious diagnosis. So tell me what the Mayo Clinic or the Mayo Brothers sort of said to you about your future and about the treatment that they wanted you to have. Did they say, get your affairs in order? Did they say there's a chance you can live 50 years? Like how did they talk to you about this?
Word for word, they said, invite your family in. It's time to say goodbye.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, no, I was about a month away from seeing the creator. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I did. My family flew in. And here's where the story gets interesting, because a fellow Baptist pastor got a hold of me and said, hey, Rick, you need to leave the Mayo Clinic. I said, mind your own business. You're a great guy, but you're not a doctor. He said, well, I've got parishioners in my church who've gone to Mexico and got better.
Wow.
And I said, well, what did they take? And he said, well, apricot something. I busted out laughing. I said, come on, John, come on. It's Rick. And so I said, well, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to go to the Mayo Clinic today, meet with my oncologist, and tell him what you said. And he said to me, good luck with that, pal.
Oh, interesting.
So I went to the Mayo Clinic, sat down, told him the story of what this Baptist pastor said. And I said, you know my case as well as anybody. What would you do if you were me? I thought he was going to teach me new swear words. I mean,
he was upset with you?
Oh, yeah. He leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, and he says, Rick, it is warm in Tijuana this time of year.
What does that mean?
I went, what? I said, message delivered. Thank you for your honesty.
What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't get it.
He wasn't going to risk a $300,000 a year job, but he wanted me to know.
He wanted you to go.
You want to go. Yeah, because he can't help you.
He said it in code. Oh my gosh.
And I told my wife that when I got back in the car, and she said, he said, what? And I told her. And that night at dinner, I told my family.
Wow.
And they taught me the new swear words. I mean, they said,
they did not want you to go to Mexico.
Oh, you're going to leave the Mayo Clinic? What are you talking about? You're dumber than we thought you were.
But the Mayo Clinic was saying, say goodbye. What is there to lose at that point? My goodness.
Well, my life. I mean, because they were offering me chemo.
I see.
And who knows, maybe by some miracle it could have worked, but I don't think so. Right. But boy, when I got to, I didn't blend with the San Diego. I was a Detroit greaser growing up. And there's the Fonzie hairdo.
Wow.
And after the surgery. And I went to the health food store in San Diego, and there's all these. I probably was the only one wearing underwear in that building. I mean, it was stone ground crowd,
I remember the 70s. I was a child.
Oh, man, Ravi Shankar music playing in the background, people digging stuff out of barrels and going, oh, wow, I can feel it. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to do well here, I can tell. But I met with Dr. Contreras, senior the next day. And he put me up on his bench and unbuttoned my shirt, and he looked down and he went. And I said, Doc, I'm a little fuzzy on, did I waste my time coming down here or what? And he said, oh, no. He said, but Rick, this is participatory medicine.
Interesting
If
phrase.
I can't get your buy-in on this, if you won't help me, we will fail.
Oh, wow.
And he said, do I get your commitment? Are you all in to do whatever we ask you to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, yeah, sure. Because my father-in-law had taken me down there. My church had put up most of the money.
Wow.
People were praying for me. The deacons anointed me with oil. I
Wow.
mean, everybody was pulling for Ricky.
That's nice.
How could I be that brittle?
Right.
Then not take their advice.
Right.
And so for 5 years, I didn't cheat about anything.
Wow.
I mean, it's all organic, mostly raw foods, fruits and vegetables. I did colonics. There's a day at the beach. I did fasting.
Oh my goodness.
And I just did things that people in my neighborhood used to beat people up for. This was not my culture.
Right.
I had a 57 Ford with slick tires and a hearse floor. I was not a tree hugger.
Right.
But I am now.
Yeah. Wow. And so it was diet. Was it also Laetrile? Were you taking the apricot seed extract?
I did. In fact, I took these little vials. I took 1 or 2 of these a day.
I was just going to ask in what form.
It's
IV shot. Laetrile right into your vein?
Right into the vein.
Oh my goodness.
I never had a side effect.
Wow.
Ever. In 3 weeks, nothing.
Do other people have side effects from Laetrile in the veins?
There were 100 people when I was there, approximately, and we all sat in the lobby gossiping all day. And I didn't see anybody getting sick. At the Mayo Clinic, I saw plenty when I went down to Chemo Row. It was, you can't imagine how these people suffered.
Wow.
But not me. And, Dr. Contreras has since pioneered other movements like immunotherapy, with dendritic cells. That's really complicated. What they did for me back then wasn't, but I'm still alive and I never relapsed ever.
Amazing.
No chemo, no radiation, no relapse. And I just believe that God took me to meet Dr. Contreras Sr. And then he left me alive so I could meet Dr. Contreras Francisco.
Right.
I don't think he's here. Yeah.
And have you kept up that protocol for 50 years? Organic food, mostly raw, colonics?
Yeah, not as strict. 5 years, I can look you in the eye and tell you I did not cheat. Later on,
sorry. How did you even?
Later on, I added some more cooked foods, like vegetables and all. But I don't go to McDonald's and I don't eat sugary stuff. And I used to take my kids into donut shops and I'd say, kids, what we're going to do is look at the things we're not going to eat.
Oh, wow.
And I'd say, but we're going to smell them today because nothing smells like a chocolatey eclair.
That is for sure. Wow. You anticipated what I was going to ask next. It wasn't that easy to source organic food in the 70s. And was your wife and family on board with this very rigorous regime? And how did that work day to day? Who cooked?
Yeah, bless her heart, she was. And we traveled from New Ulm, Minnesota, where I was living. In the dead of winter, 25 below zero, we would drive to Mankato, Minnesota, where one organic farmer lived. And he would give us a couple of frozen chickens, like that. And then we would get vegetables that they had canned from them. There was nothing in our grocery store. Nothing. Although, albeit they probably had less chemicals than our today.
Right.
But there were no organic aisles. There were no gluten-free stuff. There was no.
Right. Yeah. So
but
that was. And then now I'm going to go back to, Mazel Tov, Mr. Hill, and may you live to be 120, as we say in my faith tradition.
There you go.
Yeah, let me go back to Dr. Contreras. How did, I guess, your father and then you identify so early? Because I was alive in the 70s. I was young, but I do remember how exotic like brown rice and tofu were, and those those books about eating brewer's yeast. I mean, they were considered very avant-garde and marginal. It wasn't mainstream at all to question, what you could get at the supermarket. How did your father and you figure out the role of nutrition in fighting cancer at that point in time?
Well, my father studied a lot about the Gerson protocol from Germany. Mm-hmm. And there were some publications already at that time of patients doing much better on a plant-based diet. Mm. Later on, people started studying, and now there's hundreds of papers showing that a patient with cancer benefits tremendously from a vegan, low glycemic diet.
Oh, wow.
And this is based on the metabolic impact that cancer has on our bodies. And so we know that all cancers require a tremendous amount of sugar in comparison to the normal tissue. Mm-hmm. And doctors nowadays, they still say, no, diet doesn't play a role. But then they write a prescription for you to go and take a PET scan. Have you heard of PET scans?
I've heard of
it. It's a X-ray study where they inject into the patient sugar that is tagged with a radioactive material. Huh. And because the tumors uptake the sugar a lot more than the normal tissue, the tumors actually light up. So I call it radiology for dummies, because, I mean, it's impossible not to see them. Right. Why? Because the tumors require a lot more sugar than, well, logic would say if tumors benefit by sugar, let's restrict the sugar intake. Mm. But at any rate, Dr. Gerson was the first one to actually publish reports that there was a diet that was beneficial for cancer patients in comparison to the rest of the population. And so the whole protocol that my father began in the 60s was based on Laetral and the Gerson protocol. It was a very strict diet. That required, like with Rick, a tremendous commitment from the patients. But the results were very, very encouraging.
Right. You're making me think of something very sad. I had a partner who died quite young at 58 of cancer. And I will never forget how voraciously he wanted sugar. Like he just wanted to eat sugar. And it wasn't even like a sweet tooth. It was just like, oh my God, that's really scary. And I was very worried about him. And, sadly, he got very sick and died. And I wonder is that the cancer? This is before he knew he had cancer. Is that the cancer demanding sugar?
Very likely. Yes. Although, because we consume so much sugar, we actually are dependent or addicted to it. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine.
Right. So now Laetral is not FDA approved, as you noted. And so are you able to practice in San Diego, or have you had to?
What happened? No, I practice in Tijuana, Mexico. Mm-hmm. My father in the 70s spent about $375,000, which was a lot of money at that time, to get it approved through the Mexican FDA. So we went through all of that, and he experienced exactly what I was telling you. The day that it was approved, virtually that day, 7 other laboratories started doing Laetral. And my father never made his money back. In fact, about 2 months into the process, we started buying from the competition because they had better laboratories. Wow. and their amygdalin was pure. But because there was no patent, anybody in Mexico, right now it would be, how do you call when the patent expires and other people can do
public domain? It's in the public domain.
Yeah, it goes into public domain, and then you can do the famous generics. So now anybody can do a generic. But that exactly happened to my father, what I was talking to you about.
Wow.
But he was not interested in the money. He was just interested in being able now to openly give Laetral to the patient. So in Mexico, it is approved.
Amazing. So
because of
people
my
come from
father's
all over the world.
investment.
Sorry, people come from all over the world to Oasis of Hope, is my
We've
assumption.
treated patients from over 52 countries.
Right. Wow.
Mostly from America and Canada, but we have a lot of Europeans that come here, Australians, South Africans, from all over the world.
Let me talk a little bit about the negative effects of allopathic cancer treatment, if I may. Like, and bear with me because I'm not a doctor, but I've observed some things. I've a friend who was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's doing great by not doing everything her allopathic doctors wanted her to do, following protocols much more like the ones you described. But I was very struck, and I've heard this before, at the way oncologists in America specifically talk to their patients in a way that one could almost consider to be cursing them, meaning like the old-fashioned sense of a curse, like a hex.
Yes.
What I mean is they use language. You know what I'm
You're
saying.
dead. You're going to die.
You're going to die. I mean, literally, this friend of whom I'm thinking, she has kids, and literally, and I've heard this now from multiple women who had breast cancer and in different states, and they said that their oncologist said, husbands don't stay with wives diagnosed with breast cancer. And they also said to this mom, it's very irresponsible of you not to have chemo since you have children. So I just, I'm a feminist, and that seems like incredibly emotive and emotionally, like, that's not science, right? It's not science to say,
Correct.
Your husband will leave you and you're being a bad mother. So, and it is a curse, right? Or it is it's terrifying to be told.
Words are very powerful.
Your husband will leave you if you're diagnosed with breast cancer. Have you heard such stories, and talk to me about whether the language that doctors use has an impact on patients' recovery?
Well, that's precisely what I was talking about. Since the 50s, doctors and oncologists are trained that we need to be very truthful to the patients.
Mm-hmm.
And thus you have to be very cold and not get involved with the patients.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that I mentioned that about my father. And so my father really felt that was one of the reasons of the failure, that we were giving information to the patients that the patients would take as law because it comes from an authority. You're going to die in 6 months.
Right.
And
right.
The patient at 6 months, oh my God, I have to drop dead. I can't let my doctor down,
Right, totally. Yes, exactly.
And then things became a lot more complicated with legal issues. So doctors are talking to your lawyer through you.
Oh my gosh, yes. So they have to present a worst case scenario, or else
worst case scenario, so that they will not be sued. And the patient is in the middle, and it's devastating emotionally.
Right.
And your emotions determine how your immune system is going to work.
Oh my gosh.
Your immune system is already diminished. You give them chemotherapy, wipe out the immune system, and then you tell them that they're going to die and that the husband is going to leave them and all of those things. And that is really what is killing people. And so we believe very strongly that we need to do exactly the opposite. And people, many oncologists have told us, oh, you were just selling false hope. And the question is, well, what is true hope?
Right.
You're dead?
Right, right.
There's no true or false hope. There is hope or no hope.
Right.
Very fast, story. My father had a patient from Italy that came, and he was given 3 months to live. Receives the treatment like Rick, goes back home. 5 years later, he was a sculptor. He comes to my father and says, I have a present for you. It's a beautiful sculpture that we have here in our garden of 2 girls picking up flowers. And he says, I'm giving this to you because this is an oasis of hope. That's why we have that name.
Oh, that's so beautiful. By the way, when I look up Oasis of Hope on Wikipedia, it is full of the kinds of epithets that are aimed at me and other people who go against the dominant narrative. You're called, quackery,
Correct.
questionable, unscientific. Have you had blowback reputationally or legally from the work that you're doing?
Well, my father was really ostracized at that time. He was way ahead of his time. At least now we're called alternative doctors, but there is no question that there's still a lot of pressure on the patients. But now people are so informed that the amount of information out there is so overwhelming that doctors have a lot less tools to dissuade patients from looking into alternatives. About 90% of American patients that are going to oncologists are also doing on their own some alternatives, either diets, supplements, things that they've heard, ivermectin, all of those things. People are taking it because they're not relying just on the medical science. And on the other hand, oncology is changing dramatically. In the 70s, massive surgeries, that's a thing of the past. Whole body radiation is a thing of the past. Chemotherapy is going to be a thing of the past in probably 10 years from now. In about 15 years, not one more chemotherapy has been developed. Not one.
Wow.
Only targeted therapy. So oncology is all, reluctantly changing and for the benefit of the patients.
Interesting. So Wikipedia is on the wrong side of history, even though it's calling you names. Let me ask you.
They say that you have to be evidence-based.
Mm-hmm.
And because these are natural things, it's very difficult to do clinical trials.
Mm.
But if you are really evidence-based, they would stop. Oncologists would have to stop what they're doing. Why? Because every year more people die of cancer than the year before. So that is obvious that what we're doing is not working, and that the evidence would be very strong to say, let's stop and do something else. But they don't do it. They don't abide by their own rules of evidence-based medicine.
Do you have any data showing that your patients live longer or have better quality of life than comparable patients in traditional allopathic medicine?
We are a small institution that has no funding, but we have been able to do a few prospective clinical trials. Now, in a private environment like ours, it is impossible to do double-blind studies.
Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf. I want to talk about microplastics. Microplastics are infiltrating every aspect of our lives. Some studies estimate that we now consume a credit card's worth of plastic every day through our food, water, and even in the air that we breathe. One study found plastic particles in 100% of human living samples. Nobody is safe from exposure, and it gets worse. These particles don't just sit inertly in your body. They cross the gut lining and leach into your blood, and they disrupt everything. They alter the gut bacteria, suppress immune response, and raise the risk of neurodegenerative diseases, metabolic disorders, and even cancer. Some plastic toxins, such as BPH and phthalates, mimic hormones, interfering with fertility and even damaging DNA. Even if you eat clean and avoid processed foods, you can't opt out. But your gut can help you fight back. Kimchi 1 from Brightcore Nutrition is a potent ally in this toxic world. Created with over 900 probiotic strains unique to kimchi, it's proven to break down BPA, helping you detox from the inside out. It doesn't just support digestion. It protects cells, your brain, your hormones, and your future. Your body was never designed to handle plastic, but your gut can protect you if you give it the right tools. Get 25% off this incredible product by using the code WOLF at mybrightcore.com/wolf, or even better, call my friends at Brightcore and get 50% off plus free shipping. That's 888-575-4996. You've got to protect yourself. Thank you.
Because it would be very unethical to charge different, right? And if you charge different, then it wouldn't be double blind. They would know.
Right.
So it is kosher. I'm assuming you're Jewish.
Yes.
It is kosher to do a study where you develop a group of patients and compare it to a very similar group of patients in the literature. So
yes, that's
I'm going to do a trial with stage 4 cancer patients between such and such years, and I am going to do this treatment, and I'm going to compare it to a similar group in the literature with conventional. That we have been able to do. And for instance, we've been able to do ovarian cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, and breast cancer. So in colon cancer, our 5-year survival rate is twice as much.
What?
Twice.
That's amazing.
Now, in breast cancer, when a patient comes to us after receiving chemo and radiation, there's a patient who was sent home to die, okay? Our survival rate is 5 times more.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
And if the patient never received chemotherapy, comes to us in stage 4, our 5-year survival rate is 75%.
Incredible. Amazing.
And those results were published in a non-peer-reviewed magazine. Of course, I was happy at least somebody published them.
Yes, amazing.
So we have proof of concept.
Right. Well, that's
Rick, we have many patients like Rick.
Yeah.
Many patients. And the other thing is, how do you measure results? Well, they're objective. The tumor was this big and now it's this big. But we have many patients like Rick that are alive 25, 30 years after they were told that they were going to live 6 months. And when we take x-rays, they're riddled with cancer. But they couldn't care less because we were able to arrest tumor growth, stabilize the patient, and so the patient lives in this symbiotic arrangement with their tumors, but they're alive.
Dr. Contreras, I'm really glad you said that. And Mr. Hill, I'll return to you. I feel a little guilty because I'm asking.
No, I'm learning here. This is good.
I'm glad you said that because I'm not a medical doctor, but I am a scholar of Victorian literature. And so I've read 400 years of memoirs and letters and, nonfiction and fiction. And a great deal of it involves cancer. People get cancer. And the thing that really struck me as I was reflecting on modern cancer treatments is that people in the 19th century didn't die of cancer the way they die of cancer now. In other words, it was never good news that, especially breast cancer, that comes up a lot in, letters and memoirs and so on. It was never good news if a woman had, women's cancer or a tumor of some kind that was cancerous. But the narratives involved, they lived for years. They lived for years and years. The tumor, sometimes was really painful and sometimes it broke through the skin. I'm not, minimizing how awful suffering from cancer was, but the idea that it's a death sentence absolutely is not in 19th century literature at all. A lot of other things were a death sentence. If you had typhus or cholera or tuberculosis, it was going to be bad, very likely. But cancers people lived with cancers is what I'm trying to say. It may take them over time, but a lot of other things, were likely to take them first. What would you say to that? Does that resonate?
It's very true. That's one of the things that I've been writing about for years, that cancer is not necessarily a death sentence. It becomes in your mind a death sentence because of what doctors tell you.
Right.
And that is a very powerful, deadly message.
Right.
And that's why I believe that we need to treat cancer patients with a completely different mentality.
Right.
If you study the literature on cancer, on the double-blind studies, the placebo versus the drug, placebos have always been better.
Oh my God. I mean, there are other shocking statistics, right?
Right. And what does that mean? Why do we do double-blind studies? Because of the power of the mind.
Right.
So then we're doing everything wrong. We should be exploiting, in the correct sense of the world, the power of the mind. And that is the power of hope.
You know, you're distilling this so beautifully, because I often think about a relative who has breast cancer and this friend who has breast cancer. My relative, God bless her, has had a completely, mainstream allopathic journey. She's indoors. She's not getting sunlight. She's depressed. She's on a lot of drugs. She thinks she's going to die. She says, will you visit me in the hospital? My friend who has the exact same disease, who is completely skeptical about allopathic treatment, not getting chemo, not getting radiation. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling people what to do, but doing a range of alternative, remedies, nutrition, sunlight, chanting, sound healing, friendship, spirituality, prayer. She's having a fantastic quality of life. And I'm looking at these two women, and they may both die of breast cancer, or one will and one won't. But which one is living better, right? Which one is healthier? And I would say my friend, friend alternative over here is having a much healthier life, however long her life lasts. What would you say to that?
Well, that's one of the things that we teach our patients as soon as they arrive here. So we have meditation, we have prayer, we have singing, we have laughter, because life is short. I mean, of the three of us here, nobody knows who's going to be alive tomorrow. So how can I tell a patient that they're going to die?
Totally. I'm with you 1,000%.
Right? So just every day, I don't know if you remember Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife of the president, and she said, yesterday is gone, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. Every day is a present. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Wow.
And if you enjoy life, your immune system is going to start working for you. That's the most powerful immune boosting agent that you have. And so for us, the immune system is everything.
Right.
Rick was mentioning that we have, our program, our immune program is very powerful, because if anything is going to get you through, is your immune system. And most of the conventional therapies are immune suppressive.
Well, let me return to that in just a moment. Mr. Hill, tell me what kind of emotional or spiritual or just stress reduction practices you've used for the last 50 years that you think helped keep you healthy.
Well, being a Christian is a good place to start with that. I've got some Bible passages that I rely on. I remember waking up at 2 a.m. after I'd gotten home in a cold sweat, sat up in bed. I could tell I was on the mend, but your mind comes after you once in a while. And I would keep a guitar by my bed, and I would pick it up and I would play Jesus Keep Me Near the Cross.
Oh.
There a precious fountain, free to all, a healing stream flows from Calvary's mountain. And I would sing, my wife had set up me at two, really? You're going to be singing. But you do what you have to do to get your mind back where it ought to be. And I mean, when I left Tijuana, it was against the law to have this stuff in the States. It was really dumb. But I remember I took bags of B17 in bags and shoved them in my underwear. Probably made me look 50 pounds heavier. And nobody asked to borrow some of those pills and try them after that.
Were you illegally smuggling B17 into the United States, Mr. Hill?
And it's Rick. Absolutely. You think I would let some government, after I found a way to live, for me to go, okay, I won't ever go back there?
Right.
I mean, if anything, it was like saying sick 'em to a dog.
Right.
And I joined the, Cancer Control Society, and I spoke at big churches, and I published a book. I think we talked about it, but this has sold over 100,000 copies.
Wow! Congratulations. It's great.
You're welcome.
It's a great title.
Thanks. But yeah, I got in both feet, and that's what I think people need to do. That's
so beautiful. A couple of final questions, Dr. Contreras. We're talking about the iatrogenic nature of allopathic treatment, that, traditional treatment, traditional medicine, I should say allopathic medicine, can make you sicker. Let me talk specifically about breast cancer. All right. I've stopped having mammograms. I'm just sharing. It may be too much information. I have thermography instead. And it's fascinating, thermography, because you can see something that might be problematic, and then you can make sure you have lymphatic drainage and, and red light sauna. I'm gesturing toward a red light sauna over there in our house, and, all the things they say you should do, not wearing, sorry to talk about lady stuff with two gentlemen, but not wearing underwire, brassieres. And I've avoided mammograms. And the reason I avoided mammograms is, well, even before I looked into breast cancer overdiagnosis by a shocking factor of like 20 to 40%, right? And even before I found out that chemotherapy gives you maybe 2 or 3 months longer to live in breast cancer than no chemotherapy, even before that, I was shocked at how much mammograms have changed in my lifetime. It used to be you were taught to do a self-exam of your breast. Everyone did that. And then a mammogram was like gentle. And then I went to my last mammogram, and they slam your breast into a machine so violently that if there's anything in there, it's going to rupture, right? Or it's going to cause some damage. Yes. Seriously. And then while I was locked in this machine, the whatever nurse practitioner gave me a pitch saying, well, you can do the okay imaging for X amount of money, but it might miss something. So if you pay $300 more, you can have the extra good imaging. And I'm attached to a machine, that hurts. And they're giving me a sales pitch, that is designed to scare me. And I was like, never again. There's something really wrong with this. But I guess what I'm asking you is, am I making a horrible mistake? Are mammograms necessary? Are they dangerous? What would you say to what I just shared with you about my aversion?
Well, the amount of radiation is a really hurtful thing. And fortunately, the new machinery delivers a lot less radiation than before. But even 10 years ago, every mammogram increased your chances of developing cancer by 1%.
This is insanity.
If you do it, twice a year over 20 years, well, that's why there's so much cancer of the breast.
Oh my gosh.
Fortunately, now sonogram has become one of the best ways to determine. There's no radiation involved. Mm-hmm. And I only recommend mammograms when the sonogram is iffy. Mm. And the best imaging for the breast is actually resonance, magnetic resonance, MRIs.
Okay.
The reason why it's not done so much is because they're so expensive, but there's no radiation involved, and it's the best way to observe the breast. But my recommendation, I have 4 daughters, I have 4 sisters, so I know about this, and then so many patients. Self-exploration is the first. If you notice something different, you should visit with a doctor, and then a sonogram to begin with.
Gotcha.
And that is usually going to clarify in most of the cases that you don't need to do anything else. And mammograms only when everything else is showing that there might be something wrong, then do a diagnostic mammogram. Not screening mammograms. I do not recommend them.
That's just, I think if women knew that they raise their, 1% more risk of breast cancer every mammogram, that's so statistically significant over the course of 20 or 30 years. Good heavens. All right. Well, you've answered a lot of my questions there. Are there other things you would want to say to women in our last minute or two to avoid breast cancer?
Yes, there are three things that you can do that will reduce significantly the possibility of developing cancer. Number one, you don't have to change your diet so dramatically as a cancer patient, but consume 5 portions of fruits and vegetables a day. Fresh vegetables, hopefully organic. 5 portions is not much. A portion is what's in a small cup.
Right, right, right.
The second thing is exercise.
Hmm.
So women that consume 5 portions of fruits and vegetables reduce the risk of cancer, not just breast cancer, but mainly breast cancer, by 50%.
Wow.
If you do 4 hours of strenuous exercise a week, and that's brisk walking, okay? If you do more, it's better. The more exercise you do, the less cancer of the breast exists. Even Nike used this for a while many years ago, and they stopped them.
Right.
Because,
Pharma didn't like
but the studies are very compelling. The more exercise you do, the less. And the other thing is that just be happy.
Be happy.
Americans, it's difficult for them. For Mexicans, it's actually quite easy to be happy. Americans are just too stressed.
We do get stressed. It's true.
If you are spiritually strong, your immune system is going to be strong. So
beautiful words.
Vegetables, do exercise as much as you can. Some people can't do so much, and be happy. And you are going to reduce the risk of developing cancer by a lot.
So I'm assuming that's not just breast cancer. That's good advice for avoiding.
It's good for every cancer.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, you've covered everything I wanted to ask. It's very inspiring. How do people, well, I should say, Rick, do you have any closing remarks? Anything you wish our readers or listeners to know before we sign off?
One thing, if you'd like to have a patient's perspective over 50 years about what the Oasis of Hope offers, we've got a little website called b17works.com. And if you log on there and fill out a little one-page questionnaire, then I will get that information, HIPAA certified, and I'll get in touch with you and tell you what I know about why I made the decision 51 years to go there, and why it's been a life-changing decision and why it's so good. So
Wonderful.
That's what I'd like to do going forward.
Beautiful. And Dr. Contreras, how do people listening to this find you, visit you at Oasis of Hope, contact you, support you if they want to?
Visit us at oasisofhope.com, oasisofhope.com. And we offer free medical consultation to patients that would like to know if our program would be a good fit for them. And there's a ton of information there. The last book that I wrote, The Art and Science of Undermining Cancer, is a book written in layman terms that guides you through everything that is available conventionally, but all of the doors that can open to you in the alternative world. And so it's a book that has helped patients make the correct decisions for them.
Wonderful. All right, you guys, you heard it here, oasisofhope.com or .org? .com? Okay. And I can't thank you both enough. I'm going to say goodbye to you for now, but so grateful that you spent an hour with us sharing your wisdom and all of this very inspiring, useful information. I know we'll make the best use of it. I'm going to say goodbye to you and remove you from the studio so I can thank our sponsors, but thank you for all you do and for saving so many lives. And thank you, Mr. Hill, also for your testimony. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to
thank you.
Send you, and thank you so much. All right, everyone. I am so grateful to those people for what they're doing. I'm also so grateful to our incredible sponsor, and I'd like to call up our thanks to them. And it is, it goes like this. Sorry, I had it up on my phone and now I lost it. but I will read it to you now. Our sponsor is American Alternative Assets, and it's very important information. You heard from these gentlemen about making your own decisions about your health treatment and your health care and your health. It's just as important to make your own decisions about your finances, not just take as given what you're told to do, but research for yourself. What do 3 billionaires, 4 major banks, and a legendary 72-year-old investor all have in common? They're all making the same shocking prediction. Gold is headed for $10,000 or more. Goldman Sachs says gold will surge 20%. JP Morgan says it will surge 25%. And one respected economist now believes the US government could deliberately raise gold's official price to help pay off the national debt. And the world's wealthiest players are already making their moves. Now you can see exactly what they're seeing, and you can do it for free. Our friends at American Alternative Assets just released a powerful new report, The Surprising Case for $10,000 Gold. It breaks down the hidden signals, the central bank gold buying spree, and the way that smart Americans are protecting their retirement savings with gold right now. Go to cloutgold.com to download it for free, or call 855-803-GOLD. That's cloutgold.com or 855-803-GOLD. And don't wait. The window to take action is closing fast. And I just want to end with what I say every time I thank our sponsor, which is that Brian and I first started talking about investing in gold 5 years ago, when we just found out at that time you could invest in gold. If we had done so, we were too passive and lazy to make a move. If we had done so, our investment would have nearly quintupled. So we're not making that same mistake twice. You shouldn't either. Of course, no one can predict the future, but there's only so much gold in the world. And at a time of incredible instability, a dollar devaluation, push to digital currency, I think it's very wise to diversify into gold and silver with American Alternative Assets. So again, that's cloutgold.com, and go ahead and check them out. They're wonderful, and they'll answer your questions. This is Naomi Wolf of Outspoken on Substack and Daily Clout. Please subscribe if you like these interviews, independent journalism, essays, natural remedies, Bill Cam, which lets you follow and share any state or federal bill, our civic tech tools that we make available very affordably or for free. It takes money to keep all this going. So if you want to support all these civic tools and honest journalism that you won't get in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, please do subscribe over on Substack, on Outspoken, or donate and subscribe over on dailyclout.io. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.